Hi folks, Harrison here. I want to talk about some of the things I do to prepare for 3D printing. I'm just going to zoom out a little bit, that's a bit better. People have asked, how do your prints come out so good and so neat? Well, they don't always, is the answer, but there are some things that you can do to try and improve that. So what I have here is obviously some new filament from Sunlu. I've not used their creamy white before, but I've certainly used their black, which is, for me, an absolute perfect filament. Really gives a nice smooth, appearance, etc. But there are things that you can do. So we're going to open up these Sunlu filaments. And the first thing I'm going to do is I'm not going to use it like this. I'm going to pop it in a dryer. Now, I've got an iBoss dual dryer here. Let me just open the other one. And what the dryer does is it removes any moisture from the filament, which isn't good for printing, because what can happen is the moisture can create bubbling, etc. at the nozzle end and really ruin your print, or indeed could possibly potentially block the nozzle. So we wouldn't want to use that. So if you can, buy a cheap dryer, dry it. This is going to dry for 4 hours. Once that's done, I will either place it into the AMS I've got here. So I've got 2 AMSs, four slots each, or I can pop them into a resealable bag or other container and suck the air out through this nozzle, and that will keep it, moisture free. I mean, depending where you live, humidity is a bad thing, but this way we can combat it. And then when I need it, I pop it into my AMS, or you can attach it to the side on the external, and that gives you a nice base to start from. The other things you would really want to do is to calibrate your machine. So, make sure that your bed is level, and you can do that for most new printers, in software. So in Bamboo Studio, for example, you go to calibration and you can calibrate the level of the bed. It checks for vibrations and compensates for those and things like that. So the other things we'll do is calibrating your filament. And what I'll do very shortly is pop into software and show you how I do that in software, so you have an understanding. And once you combine these things, keeping your filament dry, calibrating your both your filament and your printer, you'll find that your prints turn out a lot better. I try to use step files rather than STL files. I can find STL files sometimes to be a little low quality. So next step, software. One thing I forgot to mention is that I do use silica beads to keep the filament dry in the AMS. So I don't know if you can see, I have added these, difficult to see, sorry, these containers which hold silica beads, and there's one here with a hygrometer that tells me the percentage of the humidity here. So I'm currently at 25%, which probably means some of these are starting to turn green. So green means that they've absorbed moisture and could do with a recharge. I got the color changing ones, so they start as orange, turn to green when they're wet. Pop them in the microwave for the recommended time, and they turn orange again, ready to soak up more moisture. So yeah, get those. Get yourself either some bags of silica that you can pop into, these bags to keep your filament dry. Get some of these from any maker website. Pop them into your AMS or wherever you want to store them, and that'll keep your filament dry as well. To try to make my prints look better, we discussed that you should calibrate your filament and calibrate the whole system. So we've got Orca Slicer here, and we've got a calibration button at the top there. this is for calibrating the filament, and there are, you know, with the, so I use a Bambulab P1S, but with the Bamboo X1, X1C, etc. You know, these can do sort of auto calibrations, but the manual calibration is for the P1S. What this does, this will calibrate your filament to make sure that it doesn't look like what's on before, but looks nice and smooth on the left. And it's part and parcel of the critical workings. Within device, there is another calibration which can be confusing. This calibration will work on leveling the bed, looking for vibration compensation, and motor noise cancellation. It's a good idea to now and again start this calibration. It lasts about 12 minutes, especially if you move the printer or you know, position it elsewhere. It's a good idea to use that calibration. But the calibration I'm certainly interested in is the filament one. But just a final word on the machine calibration. When you first get it, it's best to run that. Okay, so back to the filament calibration. We're going to run through it, and we do this to make sure that the filament comes out the absolute best it can do, and we click manual calibration. We're going to choose the nozzle that we're using, the plate that we're using, and what filament in, if we're using an AMS, which slot, which AMS itself, or the external feed. So, you know, for example, if I was going to work on A2 of my AMS, which is slot 2 on AMS, I would choose Sunloop PLA, which is my black, and the method I would leave as line. Here's where I differ from most people, is I use a 0.1, 0.3 and 0.001 as my values. And what that will do is it will print a series of lines, and from those lines you will determine what is your best filament line. So like you were calibrating a normal inkjet printer, it would print lines and you would say, right, number 3 line is the best. You're going to do the same with this. It will print out a series of lines of varying qualities. You choose which is the best and you input that into this calibration. And so then you do the same with flow rate, and that tells us which is the best flow rate for your printer. So if you can see here, before over extrusion, you see that the surface is quite rough, and before under extrusion is the same. And I've been quite guilty of having under extrusion because I've been lazy, and sometimes I've not calibrated filament, which I should have done. But when you're prototyping, you want to get things out really, really quickly. You tend to be lazy. Don't be lazy. Follow the steps, and then hopefully once you've done that, you'll have lovely, smooth and buttery prints. So again, it's the same. You choose I would say use complete calibration, the nozzle, the plate you're using, which filament you're trying to do, and you calibrate. And what it does, it prints out little squares. I think it's about 12 squares of varying quality, and you rub your finger over it, rub your nail over it, and you determine what the best quality is. And from that, you'll have an understanding of which is the best print setting for your printer. It does it twice, so you don't have to do it twice, but I do. So you do it once, determine that's the best, then it bases the next set of calibrations on the setting you last chose, and then when you dial into yourself which one's the best flow rate calibrated square, you tell the system that, and it records it in your filament. And that's the best way to do that. There is a wiki attached. If you go to the wiki, it'll give you all the instructions for this. But this is how I do it. Okay, so that's that. The other thing that I do, and I haven't found a temperature tower on Bamboo Studio, so I use Orca Studio for that. There is a temperature tower, and what you can do, you choose your filament type, and then you're going to tell it the start temp and end temp. It might sound a bit odd looking backwards, but this is the right way. And what you do, you look on the filament spool itself that you've got, and that'll tell you a temperature range of your filament. And then you look at that and you go, all right, yeah, so it's saying between 190 and 230 is the best print. You input that into your settings here and you click OK. And what that does, give me a second, I'll just discard that. I don't need any support. So then what that will do, I'll just change that to a different color so you can see. What that does is it gives you a temperature tower, and you can see just there is here temperatures based on that. Okay, so it might be more than this, less than this, depending on the range that you've selected based on the filament reel itself. And you print that out, and then you look at, you know, things like the overhang, you know, this bit here, the overhang, the quality of the surface, this little fine point here, has it got stringing, doesn't it have stringing, the roundness of this curve here, and you determine which is the best. Now this is an important step as well. I always do a temperature step on my filament when I'm not being lazy, that is, and that helps me determine what's best for my printer. So there's a lot of factors to go into it, and this is one you really shouldn't miss. With the Bamboo Studio, you can either come in to Orca Slicer, you know, you can log in safely with your account on here and do that, but that's at your own risk. Or you know, you can download a temperature tower from one of the maker websites and run that. The only other thing I do is for each filament type that I'm using, I personally set my temperatures for my, that's not a good example, let me find another example, Sunblue PLA, there we go. I come into the settings of the PLA, and I set my first layer and other layer bed temperature to 70. What I find is that really helps the filament to stick to the bed a lot better than 55, which is the default. What you see is the settings that we changed through the calibration will be sort of reflected here. You know, the flow ratio is 0.98 as opposed to what it was. And that, things like then, we can save that setting. And then, you know, these settings will really get you on a good step to having nice, smooth, muttery prints. I just want to say, you know, I'm not an expert by any means. I'm pretty new myself. Learning as I go, making mistakes, so you don't have to. But yeah, if you have any corrections, any thoughts, any ideas, any responses, etc., you know, just pop them into the comments there, and I'd love to hear what you have to say. I hope it helps somebody out there. Learning this myself was a bit of a nightmare, trawling many videos, not quite getting what you want, but that's how I saw new filament to printing from start to finish. I hope that really helps. Look forward to seeing your comments, and don't forget to subscribe, like and share. Thanks very much. Bye bye now.